Hey there, you're listening to Not Another TV Podcast. This is episode 15, the week of August 25th, 2023. My name's Drew Connick. With me again is Mads from Sassy. Mads, hello.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Still not a co-host.
You know, eventually I'll get there.
Eventually we'll get
And
there.
if I don't, then I will burn something to the ground.
It is not this day, though.
It's not determined yet what it is. Therefore, for legal reasons, you know,
For
I don't
legal
want to get arrested.
reasons.
I don't want to get arrested here.
So we have an update from the WGA and SAG strikes from this week. It was WGA that met with the AMPTP over the week. And we're basically lectured at, hilariously. Yeah. And, you know, we still have no deal. Because the AMPTP does not know how to negotiate. We are back at square one.
They're like, we tried. It's a little bit better. Okay, but it's not better in the ways we need it to be better.
No, and it also helps for you not to leak to the press. So it's essentially the AMPTP attempted to sow discord amongst the union. Didn't work, and they're still back at it.
I mean, we did finally get a date, sort of, for season 2 of Our Flag Means Death.
I did see that.
We are going to set sail in October, but that still doesn't tell us much because October does not give us a date. It's just Max being like, oh yeah, this will come out soonish. Here you go. Here's a couple pictures.
Yeah.
They've never treated that show correctly, but that's okay. I'm not angry about it at all.
Yeah. Vanity Fair did have a nice feature announcing it, though.
Yes.
So that was good.
It was good. We appreciate it. Also, Minnie Driver looks amazing.
Oh my god. She looks so good.
She looks amazing. It's like she was meant to be a pirate. Like this Minnie Driver.
Jesus
Anyways.
Christ.
And that's that on whatever. On gay pirates. Oh man.
You ever see something and you just go, I have to take a walk for a second.
Yeah.
I gotta go put my phone down for a while and be right with Jesus for a second.
Well, considering I'm in a Discord for Our Flag Means Death, and we spent a good hour just like every couple minutes reposting the photo of Taika Waititi as Blackbeard and being like, holy shit, gender. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, I completely understand. Like, we were like, oh, have we talked about this photo yet? Here it is again. Like, the leather. But literally, one of my friends posted the picture of Minnie Driver on Twitter and goes, mother? And I'm like, yes, indeed.
Well, so somebody I follow was like, are we getting lesbian MILF pirate Minnie Driver? It's like, yes.
Yes, we are.
Yes,
we are indeed. We indeed are. I don't know if you've been watching the show Deadlock on, I think it's on Prime, but one of the actresses from that is supposed to be in season 2 as well, and they didn't reveal any photos of her and Madeline Sammy, but like I'm like, I wonder why. And there are people like, is she gonna be a mermaid? Like, that would be fun. Who knows why they didn't reveal photos of her? But
yeah,
it's fine. But yes, October we get gay pirates back.
Nice. Yeah, that's all a thing of like, somebody fetch me my fainting chair.
And I'm just warning everybody now, if I'm on the podcast in October, that will become my personality. Considering how much it became my personality in last year, to the point where 3 of my friends started watching because I wouldn't shut up about it. Yeah.
And don't believe that there was any other news from this week. It was
No,
pretty
I do
slow.
not believe so. Yeah.
It was a pretty slow news week.
We're getting to the point where there isn't going to be a whole lot of news unless we
Yeah.
miraculously get a deal made for the strikes, which I don't think that's going to happen.
Right. Well, you know, we can talk about this now. I was gonna wait to talk about it later. I was gonna wait till we talked about Nancy Drew to talk about this, but
We can
um,
talk about it now,
the
whatever it is.
the executive producer Louis Tan was talking about post the series finale from this week that the CW did not tell him that the show was ending, or
I heard
tell
about this.
or tell any of them that the show was ending. Um, they did not know until the 10th episode that they were filming
Mm-hmm.
that the show was going to end. And this is only
Yeah.
because Kennedy McMahon was going to be on.
Their agent was trying to figure out logistics for the new show that they gotten signed onto. Yeah,
And
I
somebody
heard
from
about this.
CBS called the CW and was trying to figure out the schedule. And
Yep.
just the CW president just was like offhandedly, the show's too expensive, we're not doing it. Which is insane.
Great to tell your workers.
Yeah. And I haven't really talked about the CW next star in a few months, but yeah, they're just a trash management for the CW now. Because their priority is like things that make money but aren't engaging. Not the priority is making money. Whether or not it's engaging is a secondary. Not even secondary. It's entirely tertiary to anything they're doing.
They don't care as much. And my friend and I were talking about this today actually, about how like with the end of Nancy Drew and Riverdale, it's like the end of an era for the CW. Because like yes, Superman and Lois is still around, and yes, All American is, I think, but like those shows don't really showcase what was the CW, what used to be the CW. Like especially Riverdale. Like Riverdale's the end of a total freaking era, and Nancy Drew went on for 4 years. So like those are and we don't have these other big shows that they had for the longest time, and it's like, yep, this is not the CW I grew up with. I mean, to be fair, when I was a kid, it was what was it, WB?
It was WB. Yeah.
Yeah, it was WB, but still, like, it was still the same kind of content. It was just called WB instead of CW.
Yeah.
So, it's sad.
I personally just find it fascinating how the CW went from one of the most interesting networks on TV with shows like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and Jane the Virgin, and even like the Arrowverse stuff and like Riverdale
and Supernatural,
shows that I think were interesting and like compelling, and we're doing something to where it is now,
which is going to be mostly reality content.
It's going to be mostly it's mostly reality content or imports.
Yeah.
Things CW doesn't actually have to pay for, or they don't have to pay a lot for.
Yeah.
Like the recent the Italian Jesus show is it's a really great example of this.
Oh right, the Chosen one or whatever it's called.
Which is an extremely weird move for the CW. It's not
very like religious centered thing, and that's weird.
It's not when you consider what Nexstar is, which is a very right wing Christian based company.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like it's weird for the CW. It's not weird for Nexstar. But also the Chosen.
Wait, is Candace Cameron Bure going to be joining CW again?
I would not doubt it.
With her family Christian values.
Yeah. But also, The Chosen aired like 3 years ago. Like, it didn't just, like, air recently and the CW brought it over. Like, it was a while ago. It's a weird little update on the CW as being not the not the network that we know it to be, and has quickly gone into irrelevancy, like, really fast. Like, it doesn't really have anything to pin its head on. Like, even like its news shows are not like very exciting. Like, when your most interesting show is a show starring Scott Patterson, like, that's not great. That's not great, Bob.
That's not great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, who even knows, like, the longevity of Nexstar, like how long they can last as, like, management of this network, before they just completely nuke it from orbit or liquidate it. Like, it's always a question when, like, people like this buy a company, or, like, like, tangentially, like, Elon Musk buying Twitter, and it's like, what is, like, your game plan here before you just decide to cut your losses?
Right.
Like, what are you hoping for out of this? So let's move on into the GOAT. The GOAT is a weekly segment we do on this podcast where myself and Mads will pick a best TV episode or character and pit them up against each other. Last week, I picked Dimension 20, Season 5, Episode 9, Safe Harbor. And Mads, you picked Dorothy from The Golden Girls.
Indeed, I did.
Indeed, you did. And
as like a last minute, I didn't really think about this. Here's my choice.
and once again, I did not win. Cannot win.
Cannot win.
I cannot win. Who knows if I ever win again? Who's to say?
Who's to say?
I
have lots of friends on the internet, Drew.
That's true.
I actually kind of do. It's weird. Like, I forget that I have people that know me, and then I like post something, and then one of them will repost it, and I'm like, oh, that's how that gets across to people.
And I hate to be perceived.
Valid. Listen, I don't actually want to be perceived. I just keep forgetting that people perceive me because I'm just apparently I'm somebody that people like. Don't know why, because I'm a petty little bitch, but it's whatever.
Whatever. So since you won last week, you get to go first.
All right. So, this week I'm gonna be taking it back. I don't know if I could say way back, but definitely taking it back. To Teen Wolf season 3, episode 6, Hotel California.
Oh, the long ago days of 10 years ago.
Listen, a decade is a long time. But it's one of the best, honestly, I feel like it's one of the best written, one of the best acted episodes of Teen Wolf, which is not saying a whole lot. I am a huge diehard fan of Teen Wolf, so I can kind of rip it to shreds on occasion. However, the reason I love this episode, and I think it's one of the best ones, is that it really focuses on teenage issues in a way that makes sense to the show, but also enhances the relationships that these characters have with each other. For people that don't know, this episode involves hallucinations that are centered on the fears that each of these people have. If they are a supernatural creature, they start having hallucinations because of Wolfsbane that has gotten spread into the air because of Coach's whistle. don't ask questions. Don't ask how that makes sense because it just whatever. But it's one of the best scenes between Scott and Styles at the end because Scott wants to end his life because he feels like he's not good enough, he's not alpha enough as a werewolf, he's just not enough. And Styles reminds him that he does have people that care about him. And it's one of the most famous Styles lines. He goes, Scott, you're my brother. You're my best friend. So it's one of those like really emotional moments, which for me as a non-Scott like person, I don't like Scott at all. It was one of those moments where I'm like, okay, he's not that bad. So yeah, my pick is season 3, episode 6, Teen Wolf's Hotel California.
Nice. It's a good pick for Teen Wolf. It's not the episode I'd pick for Teen Wolf. I don't think it's
That's
the
bad.
episode from that season that I would pick. But
Oh no, there's a lot from that season that I would pick. I just because season 3 is one of my favorites, but I really like that episode because I do really like the different journeys that each of those characters go on. And as a Styles appreciator, I really like that moment for him where he's able to get through to Scott and like end the problem with Scott's hallucinations and fears and stuff.
my pick for this week, since we are talking about the new Star Wars series, Ahsoka, um, I'm gonna take it back a little bit. Take it back as far as Matt's took it back at least.
Wait, which series are we taking it back to?
And
Because there were two around the same time that potentially could relate to Ahsoka, so it's like, okay, which one are we talking about?
yes, but my pick for this week actually is Ahsoka Tano from specifically from the Clone Wars.
Valid. I mean, I want you to win just because she deserves it.
She does deserve it. Ahsoka is a great character. It's funny now listening to people say how great Ahsoka is as a character because when she was first introduced, the vitriol that people had for her was epic.
Mm-hmm.
Like the retelling of history. Yeah, the retelling of history as someone who watched the Clone Wars movie back in like 08 and read the reviews and read the reception. Yeah, people. This is like people now saying that they love the prequels. People did not love the prequels, guys.
No.
Words were had. But we are now at a place where we can really accept that Ahsoka is a great character. Starting off as Anakin Skywalker's Padawan and progressing through the series, through this, very long war arc, and coming out the other side, and then being where she is in Rebels as a kind of hardened, stoic, kind of mystical. What's the word that I heard someone use? It's like a natural Star Wars term for like what Ahsoka is now. Of like, I think it's Pathfinder or Wayfinder or something like that.
Yeah.
Somebody who's not a gray Jedi, but like walks their own path. Anyway, not the point. Just a really great character from start to finish. Has a lot of like really great like depth and complexity to her, and is voiced very nicely.
Ashley Eckstein.
Ashley Eckstein, yes, who is.
I've met her at conventions. She's such a gem.
Yes, like borderline iconic as that character. Just an excellent, fantastic addition to like Star Wars lore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not surprising now having her be kind of the centering point for a lot of like Star Wars stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my pick for this week.
I kind of wish I'd gone with my other pick now because I almost picked Obi-Wan Kenobi. We could have just had a Jedi off, but
Good.
no. Honestly, Ahsoka's been is my favorite female Star Wars character, hands down. So I want you to win because I want Ahsoka to win because Ahsoka deserves to win over Teen Wolf. Like, come on, let's just be real here.
Yeah.
And honestly, I loved the Clone Wars. Like, I went back and was rewatching it recently, and I was just like, her sass and snark with Anakin Skywalker makes the whole show. And then Obi-Wan standing off to the side and looking at Anakin like, this is your just desserts because you treated me like this. You deserve a Padawan that treats you like this. Like, it was beautiful. I loved it. That whole dynamic between the three of them was just chef's kiss. It was such a good show.
Yeah.
But yes, let's not rewrite history, folks. Nobody actually liked these characters when they were first introduced, and now all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, we love them. We've always loved them." I was one of the few that loved the prequel movies from the start. Okay, I was in the trenches. All right.
I'm still very critical of them, but
Oh, I can still be critical of them, but I love them.
still deeply critical of them, I should say. But at a certain point, it's not a fight you feel like having anymore.
Here's the thing: I love them because Obi-Wan Kenobi's always been a comfort character for me, and from when I was younger and read books that involved him. So like getting the prequel series when I was around the age I was reading books about him, I was like, "Ooh, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi." I will admit they were not well written, but I enjoy them because they're fun.
Right.
They're just a fun time. Don't look too closely. Don't look too closely. Just have fun with it.
Right. Right.
Oh man.
Uh,
Anywho.
let's move on to our main show.
Susan Strong, this is where you belong, hanging with me on a fallen tree. Don't you think you deserve this, to live up here on the surface? I think you do, and I think all your friends do too. How long have you lived in the darkness? I just want to show you the light, because you're a human just like me, Susan, and I want you in my life. Susan Strong.
So, our first show for this week, we're continuing our Adventure Time rewatch. We're making it through season 2. And this week we went back with season 2, episode 11, The Chamber of Frozen Blades, episode 17, Death in Bloom, and episode 18, Susan Strong. So what did you think of these batch of episodes?
They were interesting. Susan Strong was fun. That one was fun. I'm trying to remember episode 11, to be honest. It gets to be that way sometimes where I've watched all 3 of them, so I'm like, wait, which one was what?
Let's start with the Chamber of Frozen Blades.
Oh, yes, I remember that one.
Yes,
okay, now I remember like Frozen Blades, yes.
Yeah, which was Ice King episode.
King.
Where
with Gunter.
With Gunter. Where
Gunter had a baby.
Yes. Where Finn and Jake think that the Ice King is going to kidnap another princess and stake out his fortress.
They find out that he's a ninja fan, and they're like, wait, does that mean ninjas aren't cool? No, it just means he's still lame, but ninjas are awesome.
Ninjas are awesome.
And then like they destroy his lair, and I'm like, guys, they are literally, this is when you really realize just how young Finn is, because like he's a child. Like he literally was like, ooh, look, I can play with this, and it's just like, you just broke everything in his lair.
Right. Well, yeah, because Finn is canonically a
Him and
child.
Jake.
Yeah, Finn is canonically a child. Like, he's 12 years old. And Jake, by dog rules, should be technically older than him, even if, like, they are in human years the same age.
Right.
Which still makes Jake very old. like, I want to be clear about this. The show never really addresses this, but if Finn and Jake were raised alongside each other, and they're both 12, that makes Jake insanely old.
I mean, there are dogs that live to be 15, 16 in human years, so
Right, but that still makes Jake
possible.
like
I know
90-ish, more than 90-ish in human years.
He's old.
Yeah,
He's old.
and let's be clear, the show does not want us to think that Jake is this old. I just want to be clear about that. But yeah, the episode does kind of show how like Jake is kind of like, in certain ways, the less mature one of the two. Because like Jake is like the intrusive thoughts part of the duo. I'm like, hey, what if we did this? I'm just gonna do this for a second. Because Jake is like the poster child for like ADHD. In a weird way, in a way that even like Finn isn't, where like Finn is very like exuberant and energetic, but Jake is like, there's literally an episode that we skipped that is like, Jake, for the life of him, cannot focus on one thing.
Yeah.
So he's always just like bouncing around. Like in this episode, like he can't just stay in the laundry hamper. He has to go. He can't. He has to like be messing around on the computer. Like he can't even like sit still long enough to like he physically looks at the ninja book and it's like moving on.
Yeah.
And like 5 seconds later, Finn realizes it's a ninja book. Like
right.
But I do love their ninja fight.
Yes, I do too. It was fun. It was very chaotic, and I'm like, this is ADHD, and I love it.
Yeah. No, the line of like when Jake like duplicates himself, and Finn goes, 3 Jakes, that's 1 Jake too many.
Yeah,
like, it's a great line.
3 Jakes, that's 1 Jake too many.
But we also get introduced to another princess, who's not really a princess.
Yeah.
Her last name's just Princess. Dr. Princess. Which is a really good gag. Yeah. And spending a little more time with, like, the Ice King and Gunther.
I love Gunther, and I love the Ice King's love for Gunther, but doesn't want to ever, like, outwardly admit that he loves Gunther. So, like, it's really funny to be, like, watching him be worried about this this penguin while they're at the hospital, I guess that's what that is.
Yeah. Well, like, the funny thing about that is, like, I don't think you know whether or not the Ice King is aware that, like, Gunther is sick. Or, like, there's something wrong with Gunther.
Yeah.
Because Gunther is just bait. Like, Gunther is just, like, a trap so that the Ice King can steal Dr. Princess.
Right.
So, the fact that, like, Gunther is pregnant? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, okay, so laid an egg.
Laid an egg.
Whatever.
Yeah. that contained a mystical cat. I don't know.
I mean, listen, it's a show that's not meant to make sense. Yeah, it's not meant to make sense.
Not meant to make sense.
So
No, they. yeah. And I do love any chance the show has to show just like how insane the Ice King actually is. Like, it's just out of his mind. In ways that will reveal itself. But yeah. Ice King's just like you see in his lair the big like princess cage that he has. Yeah, he's out of his way. So let's talk about the other episode, Death in Bloom, which is basically just Finn and Jake go to the underworld and also don't know how to take care of a plant.
Yeah, so that episode, I was just kind of like, eh.
Right.
It was just kind of eh. Like, it didn't really, like, entice me or, like, make me laugh too much. Like, I was just like, okay, that was an episode. You know, it happened.
Right. It does have a great appearance from Death, voiced by the late Miguel Ferrer, who is really every time he appears on the show is just really great, and it's kind of like
yeah,
you can't kick me because your brain is dumb, like just like that kind of stuff. Just really great, like a really fun character. But yeah, like a lot of this episode is kind of weird, like the skeleton guys chasing them in the underworld or
and the whole follow, like Jake goes in the water and he doesn't remember who he is, and it's like, okay,
right, yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's an episode that we probably could have skipped, but I think it's a fun like introduction to Death as a character.
Mm-hmm. You're not wrong about that. Like, I did enjoy Finn, like the skull that was talking and like trying to convince Jake to do things or not do things. I did enjoy Finn stomping on it and just being like, "Shut the fuck up!" Like he's just like, "Shut up!" and he just stomps on it, and it's just like, that's one way to solve that problem.
Yeah. No, the skull going like, "Don't drink the water," and Jake being like, "That means it's good." Like, that's funny. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, everything that Finn and Jake were doing to plant is like 101. What the fuck were you all thinking?
Yeah.
You big dummies. But we also see a little bit more of like Peppermint Butler.
Mm-hmm. I like him.
Yeah, he's Princess Bubblegum's right hand man, basically. And he's like, as we see, he's very adept at the mystical arts. He's a very magic adept person. So I think that is an interesting dichotomy between like him and Princess Bubblegum, who constantly seems like she exists firmly in the real world, whatever the real world actually is. And actually, on that note, we can go to the next episode. Episode 18, Susan Strong.
I love Susan. I love her. Like, I understand Finn's like I'm the only human. I get it. And so, like, he comes across Susan and he, within reason, assumes she's human. And, like, the reveal that none of them are actually human was the most fun reveal I've ever seen in an animated series. Like, finding out that they look like people but they have fish heads, or she looks like a person but she has a cat head, and she then starts to act like a cat, and you're like, that is amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah, yeah. Well, what can I say here? Um, so like the big thing that we're introduced to in this episode is that Finn is potentially the only human alive. In whatever this land of Ooh is, right? And then seeing these people who have hats very similar to his own hat. And what does that mean? And if Susan and the rest of them aren't humans, and it's left unknown by the end of the episode whether or not Susan is a fish person or is actually human. What does that mean?
Right.
Because like Bubblegum seems cognizant of the fact that like there aren't any humans. That Finn is kind of a novelty, which could be part of the reason why she keeps Finn around and has him do stuff. Because there isn't necessarily a blueprint for someone like Finn.
Yeah. It does definitely raise that question of like, okay, why is he the only one that's like him? Why aren't there more people like him? And like, it's understandable that he did think that those guys were humans, because like you said, they have similar attire to what he's used to seeing on himself. And so like, what would anyone else assume? Like, like looking at you and I, like if I were to look at you and just assume you're a person, but like say you're an alien underneath, like I wouldn't know, because you look like what I think a human's supposed to look like. So like it makes sense.
Yeah.
No, we're not Secret Invasion. It's fine.
No.
That was just the first thing that popped in my head.
Yeah. But it does raise the question of like, why aren't there any humans? Like, and how is Finn the only human?
How did he get there?
Yeah, is Finn in a parallel dimension? Is Ooh not of this world?
Like, who is his mother? Who created this child? He appeared one day in a basket.
Yeah. Which, funny enough, is actually it's kind of this the story for Adventure Time is that Jake's parents found Finn on a leaf, and he had shot himself. That's how Jake's parents met Finn as a baby, like which isn't future knowledge, like we learned this in the previous episode. But that funny enough is exactly how found in a basket is basically how they found Finn.
Well, look at that. I can predict things.
Yeah.
I like how you're like, yeah.
But this kind of does feed into like some of the frustration that I had like the first time I was watching Adventure Time. Because there were like a lot of like big things that Adventure Time brings up of like, Finn's the only human. What's up with that? Jake has stretchy powers. What's up with that?
And they never expand on it.
They never expand on that early on in the show. We do eventually arrive at an answer, But like in these first seasons, it's very like explicitly, hey, we're not going to tell you what's going on. Anytime that we could potentially zig, we will always zag.
Lovely.
Which is something that I was frustrated, and then I just kind of had to accept that like this is just like the journey the show is on. Which became easier with like the way that I watched Adventure Time, which was like aggressively bouncing around in the show, of basically just like following character arcs. So like the first time I watched Adventure Time, I just watched. I think I watched all of the Rebecca Sugar episodes, which Rebecca Sugar, who would go on to do Adventure Time, and who would go on to do Steven Universe, wrote Susan Strong and Chamber of Frozen Blades, and she wrote a bunch of other episodes. So I like watched all of her episodes, and then I went back and I watched all of Marceline's episodes, which there is vast overlap there. And then I watched like a character we haven't met yet, and all their episodes. You know, and just until I just watched the fucking show. I kind of getting around like that kind of frustration that I have of like the show does not want to be upfront and tell you what's going on here. It could tell you what's going on. It's not going to.
Yeah, but that's kind of, I've learned that's kind of typical for like quote unquote children's programming.
Right.
Like they bring up random stuff that children don't think about because that's their target audience. They're like, whatever, it doesn't matter. Kids will think it's funny that this dog can be stretchy, and morph, you know, whatever. And then the parents are sitting there like, that doesn't make sense. What? How? What? I need answers. And they're like, we're not gonna give them to you because you're not our target audience.
Right.
But we should be their target audience.
I will say that. No, never mind. No.
You're like, we're not gonna get into it.
We're not gonna get into that today.
Oh man.
I did love the thing at the end of the episode where, or towards the end of the episode where Susan decides that she's going to attack and eat the candy people, and the candy people apparently are hapless and cute and cannot defend themselves.
Yeah, I loved the moment with the marshmallow children. And they're like on fire, and then at the end, Finn's like, "Are you guys okay?" And they're like, "We'll be mushy for a while, but it's fine." And they just rip off the charred outer edges, and I'm like, I feel that.
Yeah.
Like I feel that.
Yeah.
That's like if a marshmallow were alive. It'd be like, take this part off. I'm still good. Anyways.
Yeah.
Ridiculousness.
Yeah. But I did find that as an interesting detail. The Candy Kingdom's preparedness for battle that will shift as the show goes on.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like, well, I mean, do they really need to be prepared for battle?
Well, here's the thing. And I'm just gonna leave you with this. I'm gonna leave you with this. The Candy Kingdom is apparently defenseless, but also has giant gumball guardians.
I mean, listen.
So,
again, it's not gonna make sense. They're like, oh, this is a plot idea. Let's give them this. Oh, but it's not as much fun to write them as being able to defend themselves. So let's not let them defend themselves. Listen.
I have more things to say about this that I'm not going to say. So, let's move on to our next show.
You could still, but
let's move on to our next show, which is Ahsoka Season 1, Episode 1 and 2, entitled Master and Apprentice and toil, and trouble. So this is the third live action Disney Plus series, Disney Plus Star Wars series, following The Mandalorian, and no, this is the fourth.
So yeah, there's
The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and Andor.
And Andor.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan Kenobi is
right. Obi-Wan
prior to The Mandalorian, right?
Right.
Well, like timeline-wise, technically, it's
timeline-wise. So this is the fifth live-action Star Wars series. And
yeah, it's the fifth one.
Yeah, the fifth one. I'm not forgetting any.
No, I was counting on my hand. I was like, wait, is that the right number?
yeah, that's the right number. But this is this more than any other Star Wars series, live action Star Wars series, is strongly trying to bridge the gap between animated and live action. Clone Wars and Rebels, which like Clone Wars has already been like the driving point of this little universe, of the television universe. Like it is the axis upon which all of Star Wars TV revolves around, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it was the first Star Wars television show, wasn't it? I feel like it was. Maybe
there was another Clone Wars series made by Gendry Tartakovsky, who did Samurai Jack.
All right. Well, still, it's technically
that was
Clone
a while
Wars.
ago.
I mean, it's still technically Clone Wars. No, but like I get what you're saying. I want to, before we really dive into this, I do want to preface this by saying I love Ahsoka Tano. I do not like Rosario Dawson. So like I had some issues having to look at her face. But like,
right.
Other than that,
that's the thing, because people have been critical of Rosario Dawson's performance as Ahsoka Tano, the live action, as being very serious and dour and more stoic than they believe that Ahsoka is.
Yep.
But this feels in keeping with Ahsoka in Rebels.
So I want to like kind of comment on that, because a lot of people said a lot of the same things when Obi-Wan Kenobi came out about Obi-Wan Kenobi, and they were like, this is not the Obi-Wan Kenobi we know. I'm like, okay, but you have to realize this is the post betrayal from Anakin Skywalker. That dude's not mentally okay. Like that whole series was centered on him not being mentally okay. And like Ahsoka's been through so much since Clone Wars and Rebels, and like she's not going to be the same cute, she wasn't ever really cutesy, but like she's not going to be the same person she was as Anakin's Padawan. And that's what I think people seem to forget. Like they don't want to give growth to a character, and that annoys me. But
right. Well, I feel like they're somewhat ignoring the growth that she had in Rebels.
Yeah.
Where like she kind of was like this shadowy figure behind the scenes. And like she was kind of serious, and she was kind of stoic, and then then she fought Darth Vader,
right,
and died.
Right. She's had a lot of shit happen. Okay.
Yeah, like I think people forget that the Ahsoka we see now actually died.
And to be fair, like she also in a way went through those same emotions of Anakin becoming Darth Vader, that not on the same level as Obi-Wan Kenobi, but like similar, because that was her master. Like he was the one that was training her before she walked away. And so like she then sees him again and he's nothing like the person that she thought he was. Like that's going to fuck with your head and it's going to change who you are. And I think, yeah, I just think people forget that kind of stuff. Like, they're like, oh, that wasn't explicitly stated. Okay, well, it doesn't matter. You need to, like, realize it. Think outside the lines.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at with Rosario Dawson's portrayal of Ahsoka. It feels very in keeping with, like, Ahsoka in general to me. Even if I can concede that Rosario Dawson leaves a lot to be desired as a performer. But I think she's perfectly fine.
She's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, my issue with Rosario Dawson isn't as a performer, it's as a person. And so, like,
Right.
that's something that I, like, have to, like, push to the side when I'm watching television, because I'm like, I can hate the actor and like the performance they're doing. So, like, it's happened multiple times. But I just, it was very hard at first because I was just like, oh, I just don't like, I don't like her. Like, she's just not a good person in my eyes. And so I'm just like, okay, but then I, like, sat down and, like, she, you know, the moment she fought those droids at the temple, I was like, nope, she's Ahsoka. Like, it's fine. We're fine. We're fine here. Like, I can forget about it. She's Ahsoka.
Right.
Like, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Because that was a very Ahsoka, like, move. Like, it was freaking amazing. Like, I loved it so much. I was just like, yes.
Yeah.
Like, catch him off guard.
Yeah. I do think that this series, like, continues a troubling trend with, like, these, like, Star Wars TV shows of you have to do so much homework. So, like,
yeah.
When The Mandalorian season 3 came out, parts of that show happened on a whole other show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, pivotal parts of that season happened on an entirely different show. And here, I don't know.
Much. Sorry, no, go ahead.
Well, I don't know the enjoyment that someone would get out of this if they haven't watched Clone Wars and Rebels.
That's what I was about to say. I was like, they rely too heavily on people knowing who these characters are from Rebels and who Hyung is from the Clone Wars. Like, you're like, oh, you're supposed to know who this droid is. You're supposed to know this journey that Ahsoka's been on. You're supposed to know all these things. And it's like, but what if I'm coming into this just being like, I like the idea of this character. Let me see what this is about. And you don't know anything about the rebel forces that were part of Rebels. Like, you don't know anything. And it's like, who are these people? Because they don't initially introduce any of these characters. And I kind of got annoyed because my understanding of Rebels is very basic because I haven't watched the show. I just know what other people have told me, what I've learned through just osmosis. And so, like, I don't know the character of Balin. I don't know who this guy is that just shows up, and it's just like, and there are people that are like, oh my gosh, Ray Stevenson, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, I don't know anything about this character. Like, and so I had to research. I'm like, who is this guy? Because they don't even say his name for the longest time, and I'm like, okay, that's annoying.
Right. Well, like, as someone who has watched Rebels, like, I'm looking at this and I'm like, I like all this that's going on, but like I like seeing live action Sabine Wren because Sabine Wren,
oh, I love
of my life.
She's amazing. Sabine is amazing.
Like,
I've seen clips of her, so like I at least know who she is. But
yeah. But like the average person isn't going to care because Joanna Robinson, formerly of Vanity Fair, said an interesting thing this week of like, a TV show will either make you care or it won't, regardless of your level of investment.
Right.
It'll make you care or it won't. And that's up to the show. Whether or not you have like done all of the homework and you've like jiggled all, you've like moved all the pieces in your mind, and it'll work or it won't. and
Right.
that's a deeply subjective thing. So I can only say for me, it works because, I love Hera and I love Sabine.
Yeah.
And I
And
love Chopper, the maniacal sociopath war criminal.
and it works for me as well. I'm greatly enjoying myself. Like, I got annoyed about the Balin stuff, but like that's like one of the biggest complaints I had about it, because I'm like, I don't know who this guy is for the longest time, but that's just a me problem. Like, I want to know who people are right up front. I don't want to have to wait around to find out their names. But like, again, that's a me problem. That's not a show problem. I just am very impatient about things. So I'm like,
Right.
okay, I don't know who this guy is. I wish I knew who he was, but I'm still paying attention. I'm still interested to find out why he's doing what he's doing, all that stuff. I'm very intrigued. Also, I am a huge young fan from the Clone Wars, and so to have him central to this story, I'm like, he's getting his screen time, he's getting his due. He's such a fun droid. We love droids with personality. Chopper is so much fun. Like, the fact that you can understand what Chopper is saying without him actually saying anything, it's like, that's amazing. We love it.
Yeah, like Chopper is speaking droid, but it's like 5%
But
off of
it's
like normal English.
Yeah, it's and like one of my favorite moments actually came in episode 2, where they're all gathered in Sabine's hospital bay room, whatever, and they're talking about the droid head that she's trying to like decipher, and she mentions that it could potentially blow up, and Hera goes, I say go for it. And Young's like, because you're a hologram. And he's just like, he's in disaster mode. And I'm like, this is the best disaster mode droid since C3PO. Like, we love this chaos monster. We love him. And also I find it hilarious that Hera is played by Ewan McGregor's wife. And so it's like Star Wars royalty.
Yeah. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who is just
We love her.
so good. Like, she brings Hera to life so great.
She does. Yeah. And I was a little concerned with the first episode, because I was like, oh, is Hera just going to be in the background? Like, are we not going to get a lot of her? And then episode 2 rolls around, and she's right there in it. She's the one that's being the voice of reason with Ahsoka and Sabine, to be like, okay, you guys need to work your shit out because we need to get shit done. Like,
Right.
and she's so good at like being able to put on her general voice for Ahsoka, because that's what Ahsoka needs to hear, but then put on her I'm your best friend voice for Sabine. And it's like, there's not very many characters that can do that kind of duality, and I love that Hera has always been able to, and like they brought that into the show.
Yeah, well, like, one of the great things about Hera was that, like, she was kind of like the de facto mom of the group.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, look at me, you're gonna do this and you're gonna like
Mm-hmm.
it. Chopper, put that down.
Yep. Chopper, put that down.
Like, I think you even, like, when Chopper is having the conversation with Hera on the ship, you can even hear Chopper being like, Mom, yes you did.
She's like, I did not touch your things. And he goes, really?
Yeah.
I did. That's what was so enjoyable about this show, is that like these droids have personality, and the show manages to capture that perfectly, which is sometimes hard to do when going from droids that have been animated to making them live action, because like it's hard to do that. But by staying true to who they were on the other shows, it's just like, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This is a warm hug from a fan who's been a fan of these shows for years.
Yeah.
It's a nice little like nod to the fans.
Yeah. And like bringing I don't mean to harp on this point, but like bringing Chopper into the show is so funny, because like we've talked, like people have talked a lot about like how R2D2 is an asshole who withheld information from people. But like that's the worst, like arguably that's the worst thing he's ever done. Chopper has killed swaths of people.
Yes.
Chopper is a mass murderer.
Chopper is a war criminal.
Like, he will kill you and laugh maniacally about it. Like, he's a monster.
He is. We love it. Oh, we love it. Also, can I just say that, like, again, I'm gonna talk about Hyung because Hyung is one of my favorite droids. But his moment with Sabine, where she was like, "Well, she would say I'm not that great of a Jedi." He goes, "Well, you're not." It's
You're
just
not.
like,
You're just straight up not.
I'm like, I love you. He's like, I'm not gonna beat around the bush because I know you need to hear it straight because otherwise you're not gonna go do what you need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the decision to make Sabine a Jedi
Mm-hmm.
in between Rebels and this series, like, it's
Here.
just so interesting because, like, we saw, like, Sabine had the whole arc with the dark saber,
Mm-hmm.
and bringing that back to Mandalore and training with it, and that kind of being her in and being like trained by Kanan before he died, and
Yeah.
but like this is entirely different. Like, it was hinted at and kind of subtextual, but it was never explicitly said that Sabine had any interest with the Jedi ways or any interest
Mm-hmm.
wielding a lightsaber. And now here, like, finding that, like, she was kind of trained by Ahsoka, and she had Ezra's old lightsaber that she modified. Like,
Which, according to Hyung, means it's her saber now, which is true. Like,
yeah,
it's kind of like anything that's a sentient thing that relies on a human to work, but still has somewhat of a essence to it. Like, sabers like that, like your saber becomes an extension of your hand.
yeah,
And so, like, for her to adjust it, that means it's become part of her. She doesn't really see that yet. Like, I find that interesting that, yeah, she's quote unquote trained as a Jedi, and she's been mentored by Ahsoka in the past. Like, we've known this, like, whatever, but like, it was great to hear Ahsoka call her Padawan, but it was also weird. Like, it was just like,
yeah.
okay, it's great, but it's also weird. Like, there's these two things can happen at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the last episode of the second episode, the last scene of the second episode is really interesting, I thought, because, and you might have heard this, the last episode, the last couple of minutes of Rebels ended. So this is a Rebels, not even a spoiler, it's just straight up telling you what happened. So
I think I know what you're gonna
yeah, the
say. 'Cause
last
I've seen
episode
the
of
parallels
Rebels
online.
is they successfully defend Lothal, which is the planet that Sabine is on in this show. They successfully defend Lothal, and there's a time jump to after the war, and then it is what we see at the end of this episode of Sabine walking into that chamber, looking at the mural of them, and then Ahsoka's behind her.
Yeah.
But like these two episodes, this show is making the case that these two episodes took place in between that time jump.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. It's kind of like the last two, the second and the third Bourne films. Of like, hey, did you know these timelines are actually kind of complicated and overlapped?
And messy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, and it completely recontextualizes that scene at the end of Rebels of you assume that this is the first time that Sabine has seen Ahsoka since she went incognito.
Yeah.
Because that's also the other thing. Like, Ahsoka's arc during the rebellion and like during like at the end of Rebels is very weird. because what Ahsoka's arc is basically is she fought Darth Vader, she died, but Ezra pulled her out in the time travel dimension thing that I can't remember the name of right now. The Leslie and the Rebels got into like actual legit time travel though, and pulled her out before she could die. And then I guess it's implied that Ahsoka had to like go dark until the end of until the war wrapped. So like, which was like the implication I had of that. But no, apparently Ahsoka was like actually out and active and doing things, which is like what this, well, like these two episodes definitely state of Ahsoka realizing apparently that Thrawn is still out there, which is another thing that like non-fans or even people who haven't read like the legacy books aren't aware of. Like, oh hey, Thrawn's a big deal.
I had to remind myself of Thrawn. I was like, wait, who is this? And like, yeah. Again, if you're not willing to do the homework, which I understand the casual viewer probably isn't, but like sometimes it's like, okay, who is this? Why does this matter? Why does this matter? But they still give you enough intrigue that you're like, okay, even if I don't know who Thrawn is, he's clearly a bad dude. Like, there's clearly a lot of steps in place to keep him from being around other people.
Right.
So, like, it's clear to me that, like, there's something going on with this guy.
Right, yeah. But even then, there's a lot of, like, telling and not showing with Thrawn. Of, like, hey, you should be worried about this. And it's like, I'm not. Not.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I will say one thing I was not aware of, because I just honestly don't really know who Ray Stevenson is. I was not aware that he had passed away.
He had
and I was
passed
like, wait,
away.
what?
Yes.
And I was like, what? That's crazy. But, you know, he does a very good job with Balin. Like, he has that air to him that you're like, okay, this guy should not be messed with. Like, but he also still has like a slight. I find it very interesting that, like, yes, he's clearly against Ahsoka, but he also has a lot of, like, in a way, it seems like he has respect for her. And that's interesting. It's an interest. I like quote unquote villains that have that, like, complexity to them, where you're like, there's a part of them that's not that bad. It's a very small part.
There was a thing.
Like,
there was a thing I saw, and I'm on the record of not giving a shit about lightsaber colors, and they don't matter. Yep. But someone was talking about, and I can't find it in myself to disagree with this, about how their lightsabers aren't red; they are more orange.
Okay.
They're something between red and orange. So not being the typical Sith color or Inquisitor color, which is what you'd expect for Balin, going from like youngling to not Jedi, you know?
Yeah. I honestly thought it was red, but again, I didn't pay that close attention to the sabers.
But
I will say that I love that Ahsoka's are white. Like, I love that. Like, I just love the white saber. It's just like, yes. And she has the curved hilt. Like, her lightsabers are honestly my favorite. Like, yes, I'm a big, huge Obi-Wan Kenobi fan. Yes, I will defend that man to the end of my days, but her sabers are way more exciting.
Yep.
Anyways, but yeah, the first two episodes were good. It was a decent introduction. I enjoyed myself. You know, I'm interested to find out more. I'm interested to see how far this goes. Yeah.
Yep. So let's move on to our next show, because we spent way too long on that.
Yeah, you did.
And switch over to Dark Winds, season 2, episode 4, entitled "The March."
Mm-hmm.
And I found this to be a very, I mean, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I found this to be a very thrilling, propulsive episode
Mm-hmm.
that had lots of good moments of like suspense and
Yeah.
intrigue to it. And really got to explore kind of, not explore isn't quite the right word, but get into more of the reservation like land, like wide open
Mm-hmm.
kind of desert land. Although
Yeah.
there's one scene where Lee Port is going to a cave, and I'm like, you don't have a great track record with caves. I would not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, if the guy's in the cave, maybe just let him stay in the cave.
Just let it. Like, I'm honestly surprised that Lee Porn is still standing after all these encounters with, with
Yeah.
this guy. Like, this guy takes him to town basically every time they meet up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which makes this episode so thrilling because there's so many encounters
Yeah.
and each one is unique. It's not like the same thing different day. Like, it's literally a different situation because this guy has zero fucks to give about how many people he harms, and he really doesn't like Lee Porn for good reason. But like,
Yeah. But there was also a lot of like really good stuff throughout this episode in other areas of like Jerry Ryan's character meeting with Chi, who really truly seemed in over her head for reasons
mm-hmm,
in just about every aspect of her life, uh,
mm-hmm.
and like made me sympathize a lot more with her character than I had previously. Someone who just seems to be in a very bad situation, um,
Yeah,
and was aggressively gaslit at the end of the episode, like hardcore.
absolutely. Yeah.
Like that still seems like her money. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but and the reporter who talked with Jackie from Reservation Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I did really like the kind of metaphor of the reporter realizing that like her tactics here aren't going to work via like
Mm-hmm.
not knowing how to eat the what was it, the candy or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, the candy she's trying to eat, and it's like you can't eat it like that. And it's this whole thing of like, if you do it the way you usually do it, all you're gonna do is hurt yourself or somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you don't want to be responsible for that collateral damage.
Yeah.
So like that too, I thought added a lot of like humanity to her, which she could easily not have.
Right.
She could just be like, you know, the bulldog reporter, you know,
Mm-hmm.
get the story regardless of like who gets in the way. And I appreciate that like there's a bit more nuance to that.
Yeah. And I'm honestly fascinated with the story of the pregnant women and stuff like that because like it's very historically accurate. So like I'm a historical nerd. So like that part of this story like I'm really fascinated by. Um
Yeah.
and I think that they've created it in a way that makes these characters dynamic and interact well with each other.
Mm. Yeah. So on that note, let's switch over to Reservation Dogs. Um, season 3, episode 5, House house made of bongs.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Sure. Sounds about right. Honestly,
you remember the thought where your brain's like, this might not be.
I honestly had to look up who these people were because I couldn't remember from one episode to the next. I was like, and that's how I am a lot of times when you get introduced to a whole group of characters at one time. It's like,
right.
Oh, who are these people? Okay, let me center my understanding of this universe around who these people are. So it was a fun episode. It really was.
Yeah, so this episode takes us back to the 60s, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever explicitly said what time period it's in.
But we know that it's Cheese's family. They're members of Cheese's family.
Yeah. Well, and it's also
a couple of the other guys.
Alora's grandma, Mabel.
Yes, Alora. Yes.
Yes. And also Brownie.
Yeah.
The actor for young Brownie is doing an incredible impression.
They are. Because there were times where I was like, wait, that sounds like Brownie. You know what I mean? It literally sounds like Brownie, from the current timeline. So it's like, oh my god. If you're not looking at the screen and you're just hearing the voice, you're like, oh, the older man is back. You know.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's not true.
Yeah, and so it's a weird episode because on the one hand there's a kind of thing of what is the purpose of showing us this episode? You know, when you only have when you only have so many episodes in your final season, why divert into characters that you're right. these incarnation of characters you're not going to spend time with. So what is the larger purpose here?
And again, when I was looking up who these people were, I was reminded, oh, we've met one of them as the old man that's obsessed with space and all that stuff that Bear ran into in the first couple episodes. And he's that man, and it's one of the Max is one of the is that man. But it's okay, but why are we introducing his past? I thought he was a one and done character.
Right.
But they might be diving something, gonna do something deeper. I don't know. They don't have very many episodes left, so it's a little hard to figure out.
Right. Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, but it did him seeing aliens at the end of the episode did kind of bring me to a thing of I did a little bit of research.
I mean, it makes sense why he ends up being obsessed with space.
Right. But I kind of got brought back to the original conceit of the show, which is a bunch of friends reeling from their friend committing suicide, right?
Right.
And so I was looking at statistics earlier today, where 1 out of 5 Indigenous people have mental health related issues and suffer from mental illness. Indigenous men are 20% more likely to kill themselves than white men. And the same goes for Indigenous women. And that kind of tracks across the board. And so connecting those two things of someone who's clearly having a mental health crisis in this episode, from top to bottom of
depression, anxiety.
Yeah, depression, anxiety, and then having a hallucination that may or may not be connected to doing acid.
Yeah.
And then just just connecting that and connecting dots there to like Daniel killing himself.
Yeah.
And saying like, if we didn't know this character already, it's very likely that he would go on to kill himself.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting.
It was definitely a parallel that I didn't pick up on at first. But then like I sat with it for a bit and I was like, huh, this show is really good about bringing certain indigenous issues to light. And
Mm-hmm.
mental illness is a big one with the indigenous community, and so like that makes sense. Like, and we knew when we met him as an older man, like he's clearly does not have all his faculties. He clearly's got something going on. And so it's interesting to see where that maybe sort of manifested initially.
Right.
But again, in the grander scheme of the show, why do we care?
Right. Well, and like also tracking it for like Mabel, who would eventually become Laura's grandmother and be like a much more strict version of herself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And be a much like be
Cheese's
much
grandmother,
harder. Yeah.
and Cheese's grandmother being yeah.
And then like Brownie just
being Brownie.
being consistent.
Brownie has not changed. Brownie is just the same. At least there's someone who's consistent.
Yeah. And again, I love that performance. Like even just like the physicality of Brownie.
Yep. Great job.
Yep.
A plus casting right there.
Yeah. No, but like even like the coach felt very like bare to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so just like if we're drawing like a parallel here between like this generation and our generation of characters, and saying like we're in like a really funny, quirky place right now, and we are around like like we're around Bear, who is the equivalent of Coach, and like maybe all of this is a cyclical that happens again and again and again, and maybe the path that our guys are on is more troublesome than we would be comfortable thinking of.
Yep.
We are starting into the back half of this final season, so it'll be fun to see where it continues to take us.
Where things go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Indeed.
So let's move on to our next show, which is What We Do in the Shadows, season 5, episode 8, entitled "The Roast." And what I think is funny is how quickly we abandon the roast.
Yeah, they're back on their bullshit of yes, this is the title of the episode, but no, this is not the focus of the episode.
Yeah. And giving Doug Jones a spotlight through this episode.
Also, just the fact that these vampires who are not inherently funny, the opportunity to try and make jokes that are supposed to be funny, and it's like, you guys don't know how to do humor unless you stumble, roll, fall your way into it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't intentionally do humor. So like and it's very much shown with Colin Robinson. Like, he just fucks up every roast he tries to say.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun. It's entertaining. It was a very chaotic episode.
It was very chaotic. And it's very What We Do in the Shadows, because into like the third act, you're like, oh, there's actual like things happening with the show now. Oh, there's going to be like actual consequences. But no, we if anything, I think that's like the flaw of this episode is that like it hints at like, oh, we're gonna do something, and then it kind of just like stumbles back into the status quo. Just being, yeah, we're just kind of a bunch of goofballs.
I will say one of my favorite lines from the episode is at the very beginning where they're like trying to figure out what's wrong with Laszlo. And Naja's like, we're down to 16, having sex 16 times. And Andor goes, we're down to 3. And she just like pats his hand like,
Great.
I feel your pain. It's like, I love that she thinks the problem is that his sex drive is just whatever. Like, she thinks it's a sexual problem. And then Andor goes about trying to figure out if he can bring him out of it by being like, oh, look, books. Look, history, information. Here you go. Oh, man. And then, of course, Guillermo thinks it's his problem that's causing the problem.
Yeah.
It's just a hot mess from point A to point B and everywhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why we love this show.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh.
But and also the reveal where Guillermo's like, well, actually, I've renounced my vampire hunting ways, and they're like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, because I became a vampire. And they're like, oh, good, Nandor finally. He goes, no, it wasn't Nandor. And the guide is just standing there like, did all of you already know this? Like, she's the most clueless person in this entire scenario, and like, I love that for her.
Yeah.
She's the guide, but she knows nothing.
Yeah. I did think it was weird that like at no point did Guillermo bring up that like the massive problems he's having transforming into a vampire. Because that feels like a really important thing to bring up in this context of like, yeah, I got turned into a vampire, but like it's not going well.
Yeah.
But whatever. So
it was fun.
Yeah. Let's move on into our next show, which is Harley Quinn, season 4, episode 7, entitled "Most Culturally Impactful Franchise."
This one was really funny.
It was really funny. It's a weird episode though, because it's both an episode that's trying to fix Harley and Ivy's relationship, but also lands nowhere with it.
Yeah.
It just comes around to the same thing of like, well, we're really good together, which is technically true, but that is the thing that you all have always said, which has led to this problem. Like,
yes,
their daughter is correct. They cannot communicate to save their own lives. Because like Harley is too madcap and Ivy, I mean, we've said it a lot this episode, but she basically just has ADHD.
Yeah.
Like, she just can't focus on it. She does have that problem where, like, that actual ADHD people have of, like, you hyperfixate on something, and then once you look away from it, it stops to exist.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing that, like, a lot of ADHD people have of, like, if something's in a cabinet, you just forget to think about it.
Oh, I have that happen all the time. I will write a note down being like, oh, I'm going to remember this. And then the note does not stay in my view and I forget all about it.
Yeah.
Yep. becomes a real problem with my job. But that's beside the point.
Yeah, that's like a really common thing. So like here, Ivy is focusing so much on like Legion of Doom shit that like she kind of forgets about Harley in a certain way.
Yep.
Like she becomes so focused on it that not that like her love of Harley disappears, but like as we said, she just
She
forgets to.
out of sight, out of mind. And like we kind of started to see that in last week's episode, with Harley like showing up and her just not realizing Harley was even there. Like
Right.
it's just like she was so focused on what was going on with her job that she was just like, "Oh, right, home life. I have that."
Right. And because Ivy had like it's the perfect storm of having ADHD or clearly having ADHD symptoms and also being an obsessive personality. Because like we see that happen with Ivy over and over again on the show of she gets so into something and she forgets to focus on those other things. Like they kind of feed into each other.
Yep.
Like we saw that with like her PR guys when she forgets to focus on her team, you know? So like she can't like her. It's like her literally just like what we were saying. Like her mind can't be in two places at once.
And I love her for that, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
I love her for that realism because I'm like, you get me, you understand. But it does become that problem where like, and of course it's like done as like haha jokes, whatever, but the daughter brings up the point of you guys couldn't agree on a name for me, so I made my own name. Like I found my own name. Like and that is why I'm named after a character from Avatar.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like it's the other problem with like Harley of she gets so excited about everything that like nothing becomes important, you know?
Yeah. Because, yeah, when everything is important, nothing is important. Unfortunately.
Yeah, and again, like the problem this episode arrives at is it doesn't arrive at anything. There's
Nothing's resolved, nothing is revealed. They're still going to go forward with their communication issues.
yeah, and nothing like we're still at the same place we were at the beginning of the episode. With them having problems but not doing anything about it, which is a problem. But also we're getting into like end of the season stuff with like Lex apparently starting the apocalypse and
Why not?
the gag
Just why not?
the gag of Robin basically becoming like the captain from Wall-E.
Yes. I was like, this is what this episode, this show is just really good at humorous things that are not said. Like they're good at humorous visualizations, and that is one of them. And and the baby shark growing into this inept, obnoxious, more harm than good character.
King baby.
I mean, which we saw as a baby when he tried to eat the gun. Like, I mean, come on, we knew this was coming.
This is outstanding. And then there's just like the baseline of like Avatar really is just the most culturally relevant thing that's ever existed. Like, which is something that people have debated for like the last 15 years. Like, how important is Avatar really?
Yeah.
and calling a bag of
Listen,
dirt unobtainium.
Listen, you can not like this movie and know that it is culturally relevant because everyone talks about it. Whether they're talking negatively or positively about it, people are talking about it.
Here's the
So,
thing: can something be culturally relevant if everyone constantly talks about how it's not culturally relevant? This is the question.
who knows? Who knows these things?
Who knows, indeed. So let's move on into our next show in the same vein, which is My Adventures with Superman, Season 1, Episode 8, entitled Zero Day Part 1.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's hard to view this
Okay.
episode on its own merit.
Considering I fell asleep during it.
Yeah, and it's part 1, um,
Yeah.
which makes it difficult to. I have a lot of genuine critical thoughts on it. But I did think it's a fun episode. Uh, Clark gets his super hearing finally. Like we're
Mhm.
kind of unlocking Superman powers in similar ways of like Smallville, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, I yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, and also we're um, we're teasing at like larger DC universe.
Mhm.
So like bringing in Vicky Vale, who is a Batman regular,
Mhm.
someone that Batman frequents a lot, and also uh, referencing the Queen Corporation, which is, you know, Arrow fans know Oliver Queen, Green
Yep.
Arrow. So we're kind of like
Mhm.
we're like threatening at pushing open and getting more into like Justice League stuff,
Yeah.
which I think is uh, kind of fascinating this early on in the show.
Yeah.
Uh, this place in like its little universe. Um, but like I'm gonna say it again. I said it last week. Bad Superman continues to be super boring. Engaging with it on that level is super boring.
I wonder if the reason they're bringing in this Justice League stuff earlier than anticipated is because they're trying to rush things. I don't like it seems somewhat rushed in my opinion, but like maybe I don't know, maybe I'm just shooting words out of my mouth. But it just I don't know, it just feels super rushed and like maybe they're like, "Well, maybe we'll only get one season. We have to do everything." Which is always a possibility with television,
If
but
you know what, if we were bringing in uh, Themyscira and Wonder Woman, I would say this is rushed. But as where we're at right now is just interesting additions, like interesting
yeah, I guess.
choices for additions. You know,
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree about bad Superman though. Like just stop doing
that's
it.
I don't care. I just don't care. You're there.
Just stop doing it. We don't care.
Yeah.
He's no longer relevant.
Yeah. Yeah.
He is not culturally relevant.
Yeah. Yeah. But the the end of the episode really ends with a bang, um, and has a lot of really good action. Deathstroke is back. I still think his helmet looks dumb, and it's a bad design, but whatever, it's fine. I'm not gonna belabor this point. Speaking of belaboring points, let's move on into our next show, Nancy Drew, Season 4, Episode 13, entitled The Light Between Lives. And this is the series finale for Nancy Drew. So we talked during the news segment about how the writers on Nancy Drew did not know this would be the final season until its 10th episode.
Right.
Until they had already done the 10th episode and then had to scramble for the last 3 episodes of the season.
To wrap things up.
Yes. Which almost makes the rest of the season even weirder.
Yeah, I'm curious where they were gonna go with this.
Also tells me that their original plan did not involve Nancy and Ace getting together.
Yeah.
Like almost certainly they were
They
not
were like,
together.
we're gonna drag this out even longer. And maybe their original plan was going to be that Tristan and Nancy's souls were soulmates. Like they're maybe that's, soulmates that were in love, not soulmates that hate each other.
Yeah.
But like I'm curious if that was their original plan, was that this was going to be our souls are connected and we're in love with each other and da da da, whatever. And because it seems weird to bring up that subject and then it be like, oh no, actually your souls hate each other.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. And it didn't jive with the way they've interacted with each other the rest of the season, because like if their souls were souls in a past life that absolutely hated each other to the point of Tristan's past soul killing Nancy's past soul, like would they have been romantically inclined towards each other? Like I don't know.
Yeah. Although I do think it's the other way around.
Who knows?
I think it's the other way around. Nancy's soul killed Tristan's soul, right?
No, remember Tristan's soul stabbed Nancy's soul in with the scissors and then disposed of the body.
Right, but Nancy's soul was the one who designed Sin Eaters.
Right.
And so her previous soul turned Tristan's soul into a Sin Eater.
Yeah, but that didn't kill him. It just made him a thing. I don't know. This is proving how convoluted this story is that we can't even figure it out.
I mean, I can see that you could be right, but also this is very dumb. A lot of this episode's very dumb.
The only thing I really enjoyed about this episode was honestly the last few minutes, because I always love seeing how a show like brings characters to the ending, you know what I mean? Like seeing them go their happy ways and whatever.
Right. Yep.
It's always heartwarming.
Yeah.
Even if getting there makes no sense.
Right. And you don't even the crazy thing is that the ostensible big bad of the season is not dealt with in any way, shape, or form. She rides off into the sunset.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to me. But also tells me.
Also, sorry, go ahead.
Tells me that like the show had season 5 plans for her.
Oh yeah, and with the whole curse thing that this weird thing that we've been doing with our past souls, this has cured the curse that is between us, even though every other research we've ever done has never said anything related to this. And Ace is like, well, Temperance could only do so much, so this is beyond Temperance's knowledge or whatever. And I'm like, is it though?
This was beyond the world-class witch. Sure. Okay.
Who's been part of the town since the inception of the town, and therefore would know about this whole Sin Eater situation. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's Really stupid.
It doesn't make sense.
No, yeah, it's very. Don't look the man behind the curtain.
Don't look too closely. Just enjoy them kissing and not dying.
Yeah, yeah, it's just so stupid.
Also, I found it interesting that everyone being infected by all the sins of the town meant that they all went mental. They all just went crazy and started destroying the town they live in.
Yeah, this is also very stupid.
I was like, I can understand them like getting sins that are like related to things that have happened. I understand that, but like, how does that translate into them destroying the place where they live? I'm confused.
Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. The rules for sins have not been laid out properly or at all.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And it makes no sense whatsoever.
Nope. we're just gonna keep we're just gonna move on. We're just gonna whatever. And also, I found it very interesting that all this stuff burned up. This stuff that Bess has had at the historical society this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
These things that were rare and important, and all these things, whatever. And then her journey is to go find them again. I'm like, what?
Well, not to
Or
mention,
find more. I'm not them, but more of them. And I'm like, but what?
well, not just rare and important, but dangerous.
Right.
And what's the first thing that Nancy does? Leave town.
Nancy's like, I'm gonna go fix these other sin eaters. Well, I'm like, clearly it's not a big enough problem that anybody else has heard about it. Like, is that really your priority? Your town is a hot mess right now. Is that your priority?
Yeah. Stuff probably got released in that fire, and you're gonna have problems. And your entire supernatural team is like splitting off into the wind.
Well, the other thing, it's like the writers were like, "Oh no, fire destroys all these things. It doesn't release these things." And I'm like, "Really?" Because I'm pretty sure that's not how supernatural things
I'm
work.
pretty sure if it gets broken at all,
It's released.
it's released. That is
Typical fire does not destroy supernatural essence.
Because if it did, I'm sure that would have been Plan A.
Also, like, unless there's salt involved, the show Supernatural has taught me that you have to salt and burn things to make them go away. Like, you can't just burn them.
Yeah. Yeah, and
also, I felt like Nick being more upset about it than Bess was an interesting choice as well.
Yeah, well, it kind of goes to the thing of like how this season Nick has been really strongly characterized as like the protector of the group, in ways that like I don't think he was in prior seasons.
No, and he's very attached to the town all of a sudden. Like, he's like, "Oh no, I can't. I have to do everything to keep this town fine." And I'm like, "But you've been kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Very apathetic about the town itself. Like, yes, you love your friends, and yes, you have a job there, and yes, you have a life there, but like, you've not been very attached to the town itself." And then all of a sudden this season it's like, no. And then like this final episode he's like, but this stuff. And it's just like, okay, bro. Like, calm down.
Right, and it's hard to say that while at the same time actively planning to leave and talking about finding places to settle down that aren't this place.
Yeah.
But I did think it was interesting.
You're telling me that one statement from Bess where she says you don't owe the town anything anymore is enough for you to be like, okay, I'll go on my little road trip I've been planning this whole season?
Yeah. I did think it was interesting.
Don't look too closely.
Yeah, I did think it was interesting to note that Nick and Jade got hired by Tom Swift,
Yes.
which is
I loved that call out because
it
I
was
love
just
Tom
directly
Swift.
acknowledging a spinoff that did not work.
Listen, I
Where
love
like
that show.
the impulse to just be like Poochie died on the way back to his home planet would be so strong. Uh, to just be like Tom Swift, I don't know who that is.
I don't know. I liked the call out because I enjoyed myself watching Tom Swift. And I love Zenzi so much that I was like, "Oh, Zenzi, we mentioned her." And I do think it's an interesting career option for Nick,
Yeah,
but yeah, it was a
it
choice.
was.
Speaking of call outs to things, so one of the biggest fan theories, or not one of the biggest, but like, yeah, no, it's one of the biggest fan theories regarding Ace is that he is a Hardy.
Right.
And for them to give him the initials of AH at the very last second of this episode, it's like, we've seen you fans, we know what you guys want. Here's a tiny crumb. Like, it's not even worth mentioning, but like, it's a tiny crumb.
Right, and I think it was like all but confirmed that he was like uh, tangential to show that like he is a Hardy. Uh,
He's a
he's a
Hardy.
Hardy.
Let's be real.
He's Ace Hardy, which is
Which
wild.
makes me happy. Which is wild, but it also makes me happy because
It's insane.
I was always more of a Hardy Boys fan than a Nancy Drew fan. So like, I'm like, ee. But I liked both series growing up, but like I read Hardy Boys more.
Right.
But
It's just what a
wild.
swing to make.
What they're like, let's see, what can we do in that final seconds that'll drive the fandom fucking bananas?
Mm-hmm.
We'll give him the last initial of H.
Yeah.
What a way to reveal. What a way to reveal. Where we can't do anything about it. I will say I'm glad that Ace is going to medical school to become a, to work in mortuary science, whatever, because apparently the dude's obsessed with mortuary
I
science
guess
now.
that's that's another thing that the season
It's
decided.
the dead girl. It's the dead girl. She influenced him.
Like, yeah, that's another thing this season decided. Yeah, Ace is just really into mortuary shit.
He's just really into death. It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, when your girlfriend is Nancy Drew. So, I mean.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm, it was, it was, it's the best we could have hoped for, I guess.
Yeah.
Again, someone on my timeline is obsessed with this season and said it was really well done, and I'm just like, no.
It was not.
No, I don't agree. We were clearly watching a different show.
Yeah.
Or your expectations are below ground level, so when it's ground level, you're like, this is great.
I, however, have watched more than 5 TV shows in my life.
I expand beyond just teen television.
Yeah.
But no, it was I liked that George is going to law school. Like, that's where she needs to be. That's perfect for her. I love that Bess and is it Addie? Is that her name?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Bess and them are together, like, they have plans to like stay together and build a future together. Like, that's cute. I like that.
Yeah.
And Carson is nervous beyond hell of being a dad again. Like, that was fun.
Yeah.
And then like, and Ryan goes to leave and he's like saying some stuff and Carson's like, if you need a lawyer, he goes, I know where to find you. Like they've become friends. Like I like that.
Yep. Yep. Uh,
Who would have thought in season 1 they would become friends?
um, yeah, and this isn't on this episode or the season or even really the show. And I don't know how you would have explained this, but I really would have enjoyed a return of Odette, Bess's ghost girlfriend from the second season, because I really loved that character, and I miss her.
I liked her too.
Here's the thing about Odette. She would just come in and insult a couple men, flirt with Bess, and be like, I'm out.
Here's the thing. They tried to recreate Ghost Girlfriend with Ace this season, and they failed miserably. Because she wasn't dynamic or interesting enough for us to care. Like, she had no personality. Whereas Odette would literally, like you said, come in, insult some people, and then be like, hey, at Bess, and then walk away, and we'd be like, okay, that was fun.
That was fun.
Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Like, she was I was sad when she had to go away.
Yes.
I was really, like, and I didn't expect to be sad when that happened because I was like, she's a ghost. Who cares? But, like, no, she became a very central, integral character that it was just like, why'd you get rid of her?
Yeah.
We don't need to get rid of this ghost. We can keep this ghost.
Yeah. And I like Addie a lot. But, like, Odette was great. Like, Odette was amazing.
Anyways.
So yeah, I would have enjoyed like some kind of return or reference to Odette, but yeah, you get what you get.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Nancy and Ace get to ride off into the sunset, occasionally seeing each other, because that's what it sounded like. Like they were like, "Oh, we're gonna date," but like I don't know when I'll see you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess Nancy will come back occasionally.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, but like it was definitely going to be a long distance situation.
Right. Well,
maybe they just got way too used to not being able to be in each other's proximity.
Right. Well, I mean, Nancy can only spend so much time in the other towns hunting sin eaters.
Yeah.
So eventually she's gonna figure that out.
I'm pretty sure a townsperson's going to call her within a week and be like, we need help. Come back.
Yeah. No, because they unleashed 50 spirits.
They unleashed everything from the Historical Society. So, it's fine.
Yeah, and
we're fine.
No, the real trouble is going to come when the last lady who was in charge of the Historical Society comes back and goes, what the fuck did you all do? This shit was important.
Yeah. She's like, I left you in charge. And then she'll grumble and be like, teenagers. She will literally be like, teenagers. Because that's what they are. They're freaking teenagers.
They are 19 at the most.
I know, but they can't seem to make up their mind about that because, like, George supposedly is old enough to go.
Wait, that was okay. I wasn't going to mention this.
Law school.
I wasn't going to mention this.
And she's supposedly old enough to have gone through enough college that they would be accepting her into a law school.
Right. That was my thing. Like, I was thinking about this of like, George couldn't have gone through enough college to be let into law school. Right?
And it would be different if she was like their pre-law program. Like that would make sense, but like what?
To law school? Like
it's fine. We're fine. We're all fine here.
Like, and even just by like George didn't go to college the other seasons that we just didn't see, did she? Okay. Because
I don't. Honestly,
By the
at this point, considering it's only been a year since the mom died, I don't know anything, apparently.
by the confines of like when this show is set and how long this show has taken, George was in college for a semester.
Yeah.
Not even a whole year. She couldn't have been in
No.
a whole year.
No.
One semester.
Whatever. Time doesn't matter in any of these universes, apparently. Time does not exist. Time is not relevant.
You know what? To quote Riverdale, which also ended this week. Don't worry about it, man. It's Riverdale.
Valid.
So,
Just don't worry about it.
yeah.
Don't worry about it. It's Horseshoe Bay.
So
Oh.
that is it for
On
this
that
week.
note,
Uh,
it is indeed.
yes. Next week we will be talking about the season finale of Justified City Primeval.
Mhm.
And we will be continuing to try to figure out things to talk about on this podcast. As more things end and less things start up.
Yeah. It's very much slim pickings for a
Slim
while.
pickings. Yeah. We're well. At least I am contemplating a Dimension 20 rewatch in the future. So let us know if that is something that you would be interested in, or if there's anything else. Any other shows we can rewatch in the interim.
Yes.
So until next week, where can we find you online?
So you can find me on X, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok at DorothyNYC89, and yeah, and Instagram. Did I say Instagram? I don't know. I'm tired. Any of those places is where you can find me. I'm chronically online, so I'm sure I'll be around if you were to ever message me.
And you can find me on Twitter at Deidre Koenig, and a bunch of other places in a variation of my name. Blue Sky at drewkoenig.bsky.social, TikTok at Drew_Koenig. I'm also on Serialized, see what I'm watching throughout the week. And you can find the podcast on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Blue Sky at Not Another TV Podcast. And you can email us at not another TV podcast at gmail.com with any thoughts, comments, questions, listener submissions, goat recommendations that you have. You can find previous episodes of the podcast on Apple Podcasts and YouTube and whatever other podcatching devices you presently have. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave us a review on any of those platforms. Until next week, be sure to remember, whatever happens in the ocean is none of your business. Goodbye.
Indeed. Goodbye.